Poor delivery boy helped 80-year-old woman carry groceries. 3 hours later, police knocked on his door. The rain hammered against the cracked sidewalk as Marcus wiped sweat from his forehead, his delivery uniform clinging to his thin frame. At 19, he had been working 3 jobs to keep his sick mother's medical bills from drowning them both. His bicycle, rusty and patched with duct tape, leaned against the apartment building where he had just dropped off someone's dinner. That's when he saw her. An elderly woman stood at the bottom of the stairs, grocery bags scattered around her feet like fallen leaves. Her silver hair was drenched, and her hands shook as she tried to gather the spilled contents. Apples rolled across the wet pavement. A carton of milk had burst open, its contents mixing with the rainwater. Marcus didn't hesitate. "Ma'am, let me help you." She looked up, startled. Her eyes were a pale blue, rimmed with exhaustion. "Oh dear, you don't have to." "It's no trouble," Marcus said, already kneeling to collect the scattered groceries. He noticed her hands were thin, almost fragile, and she moved slowly, like each step caused her pain. But what Marcus didn't know was that this moment would change everything. "I'm Eleanor," she said softly as he helped her to her feet. "Eleanor Whitmore." "Marcus," he replied, shouldering her heaviest bags, "let me carry these upstairs for you." Eleanor lived on the 4th floor. There was no elevator. Marcus climbed each step carefully, making sure she could keep up. Her breathing grew labored, and twice she had to stop and rest against the banister. "You sure you're okay, Mrs. Whitmore?" Marcus asked, genuine concern in his voice. She nodded, but he could see she wasn't. When they finally reached her apartment, Eleanor fumbled with her keys, her hands trembling more violently now. What happened next would haunt Marcus for the rest of the day. The door opened to reveal a small, neat apartment filled with expensive antiques and family photographs. Crystal vases caught the light from elegant lamps. Oil paintings in gold frames lined the walls. Marcus set the groceries down on a marble-top table, confused by the contrast between Eleanor's obvious wealth and her struggle on the stairs. "Can I make you some tea, dear?" Eleanor asked, moving slowly toward the kitchen. "I really should get going," Marcus said, glancing at his phone. He had 2 more deliveries waiting. "But are you sure you're all right? Maybe I should call someone for you." Eleanor's smile was sad. "There's no one to call anymore, sweetheart." Something in her voice made Marcus stop. He looked at her more carefully, seeing the loneliness that seemed to fill the expensive apartment like a cold fog. Then Eleanor said something that made Marcus's heart skip. Would you mind staying just for a minute? I haven't had anyone to talk to in weeks." Marcus checked his phone again. His supervisor would be angry if he was late with the other deliveries. His mother needed every dollar he could earn. But looking at Eleanor, so small and frail in her grand apartment, he couldn't bring himself to leave. "Just for a few minutes," he said. They sat at her dining table, an ornate piece that probably cost more than Marcus made in 6 months. Eleanor served him tea in delicate china cups that clinked softly when he set them down. "Tell me about yourself, Marcus," she said. "Do you have family?" Marcus found himself opening up to this stranger. He told her about his mother's illness, about working 3 jobs, about his dream of someday going to college. Eleanor listened with the kind of attention that felt rare in his world. But Marcus had no idea what Eleanor was really thinking. "You're a good boy," Eleanor said finally. "Your mother raised you well." Marcus blushed. "I just try to help when I can." "Not everyone would stop in the rain to help an old woman with her groceries," Eleanor said. Her eyes had grown distant. "Most people just walk by." Marcus stayed longer than he had planned. When he finally left, Eleanor pressed a $20 bill into his hand. "For your kindness," she insisted, despite his protests. "Mrs. Whitmore, really, I can't." "Please," she said firmly. "It would make me happy." Marcus pedaled through the rain to his remaining deliveries, Eleanor's sad smile lingering in his mind. Something about her had touched him deeply, though he couldn't say exactly what. 3 hours later, everything changed. Marcus was in his small apartment, helping his mother with her evening medications when the knock came. 3 sharp raps that echoed through their thin walls. He opened the door to find 2 police officers standing in the hallway, their expressions serious. "Marcus Rodriguez," the older officer asked. Marcus's stomach dropped. Yes, sir. Is everything okay? We need to talk to you about Eleanor Whitmore. The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. His knees went weak. Is Mrs. Whitmore all right? What they told him next left Marcus speechless. The officers explained that Eleanor had passed away that evening. A heart attack, they said. Her housekeeper had found her on the kitchen floor. But that wasn't why they had come. Mrs. Whitmore left something for you, the younger officer said, holding out an envelope with Marcus's name written in elegant script. Marcus stared at the envelope, his hands shaking. I don't understand. I just met her today. She called her lawyer this afternoon, the older officer explained, made some changes to her will. Asked us to make sure you got this personally. Marcus opened the envelope with trembling fingers. Inside was a handwritten note and a business card for a law firm. The note read, Dear Marcus, in my 80 years, I have met many people. Most wanted something from me. You wanted nothing but to help. Your kindness to a lonely old woman meant more than you could ever know. I have no family left, no children to carry on my name, but I have met someone today who reminded me that goodness still exists in this world. Please see my lawyer tomorrow. You have given me the greatest gift anyone could give, hope in humanity. With all my love and gratitude, Eleanor Whitmore. Marcus couldn't believe what he was reading. What does this mean? He asked the officers, his voice barely a whisper. You'll need to speak with the lawyer, the older officer said gently. But from what we understand, Mrs. Whitmore was quite wealthy. And she seems to have left instructions regarding you. After the police left, Marcus sat staring at the business card. His mother, weak from her treatments, had listened to everything from her chair. Marcus, she said softly, what you did today, helping that woman. I just carried her groceries, Mom, Marcus said, still in shock. Sometimes the smallest acts of kindness create the biggest changes, his mother replied. Your father used to say that. The next morning brought revelations that would change Marcus's life forever. The law office was in the wealthy part of town, in a building Marcus had never imagined entering. The lawyer, Mr. Harrison, was a distinguished man with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. Please sit down, Marcus, Mr. Harrison said, gesturing to a leather chair across from his massive desk. Marcus perched on the edge of the seat, nervous and out of place in his worn jeans and delivery company t-shirt. Mrs. Whitmore was one of my oldest clients, Mr. Harrison began. She called me yesterday afternoon, quite insistent about making changes to her will. He opened a thick folder and pulled out several documents. She told me about a young man who helped her with groceries in the rain. She said this young man showed her more kindness in one afternoon than she had experienced in months. Marcus's throat felt tight. She was very nice to me, sir. I didn't do anything special. But what Mr. Harrison said next would change everything Marcus thought he knew about kindness. Mrs. Whitmore was worth approximately $12 million, the lawyer said calmly. She has left the bulk of her estate to various charities, but she has also made a very specific provision for you. Marcus felt the room spinning. $12 million. He had never imagined such money could exist in one person's life. She has established a trust fund in your name, Mr. Harrison continued. It will pay for your college education, your mother's medical expenses, and provide you with a modest income while you study. Marcus couldn't speak. Tears began streaming down his face. Furthermore, the lawyer said, she has left you her apartment. She thought you might want to keep it or sell it to further your education. The choice is yours. The weight of Eleanor's final gift was overwhelming. I don't understand, Marcus managed to say. I just helped her carry groceries. Anyone would have done that. Mr. Harrison leaned forward, his expression gentle. Marcus, Mrs. Whitmore spent her last years quite alone. Her husband passed 5 years ago. She had no children. Her friends had all passed away. She told me yesterday that she had begun to believe that kindness was dead in the world. He paused, letting his words sink in. Then a young man stopped in the rain, not because he had to, not because he expected anything in return, but simply because she needed help. She said you reminded her of her late husband when he was young. Marcus wiped his eyes with his sleeve. She seemed so sad. I couldn't just leave her there. That's exactly why she chose you, Mr. Harrison said, because you didn't see an opportunity or a wealthy woman who might reward you. You saw another human being who needed help. 6 months later, Marcus stood in the hallway of the community college, his textbooks tucked under his arm. His mother's treatments were working. The experimental therapy that had been too expensive before was now possible because of Eleanor's gift. She was getting stronger every day. Marcus had kept Eleanor's apartment, unable to sell the place where he had spent those precious minutes with her. He had turned one room into a study space, surrounded by the books Eleanor had collected over her lifetime. Every evening, he would sit at the same table where they had shared tea, doing his homework and thinking about the woman who had changed his life with a single act of generosity. He had started a small scholarship fund of his own, using part of the trust income to help other young people in his old neighborhood. Nothing large, just enough to buy school supplies or help with transportation costs. But the real change wasn't in the money. It was in what Marcus had learned about the power of simple kindness. On the anniversary of the day he met Eleanor, Marcus returned to the grocery store where it had all begun. He carried a bouquet of white roses to the building where she had lived, leaving them by the front steps where he had first seen her struggling with her bags. "Thank you, Mrs. Whitmore," he whispered to the wind, "for teaching me that the smallest gestures can carry the greatest power." As he walked away, a young woman slipped on the wet pavement nearby, her books scattering. Without thinking, Marcus hurried over to help her gather them up. She looked up at him with surprised gratitude. "Thank you so much. You didn't have to." Marcus smiled, remembering Eleanor's words. "It's no trouble at all," he said. And in that moment, he understood that Eleanor's greatest gift wasn't the money or the apartment or the education. It was the lesson that kindness, passed from one person to another, creates ripples that never truly end. Sometimes the most ordinary moments, helping a stranger carry groceries in the rain, can change not just your life, but your understanding of what it means to be human. The circle of kindness Eleanor started that rainy afternoon would continue long after Marcus graduated, long after he became successful, because he had learned the most important lesson of all, that we rise by lifting others.